Hello, my name is Weston Brown, and I am a ongoing caseworker or social worker with the Buckeye Ranch. I am also the son of Mitch and Lori Brown. Please don't hold that against me if there is a problem. The reason for this video is to ask for help. To give you a little bit of an idea of what I actually do, about 20 years ago, the Buckeye Ranch, or the Buckeyes Boys Ranch as it was once called, was contracted by the state of Ohio, and specifically Franklin County, to help with its ongoing caseload in child welfare. So we work hand in hand with Franklin County Children's Services to try to serve the community and reach some of those kids who are in danger of abuse and neglect. So part of my job is to go out and visit with the families and with the children specifically, depending on the case, once a week, twice a week, once a month, whatever is required to kind of investigate and see what the family needs. I also have the power to remove children if need be. The express purpose of this video is to talk about two families in particular who need help. Right now, even before COVID, even before the inflation issues, we've been overrun with families. The problem has not been getting better, it has not been easing, it's only been getting worse. You couple that with COVID and with the recent economic downturn, so to speak, and there are a lot of people in a lot of serious trouble. The shelters themselves are weeks, months of waiting before anybody can get into them, completely overrun. It is a dire situation, very, very dire. Up in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, there are hundreds, if not close to potentially 1,000 children sleeping in Cuyahoga County's Child Services building alone, so their office building, to kind of give you an idea of what is actually going on, and that is in just Ohio. Two families I would like to speak to you about today that could use your help, or somebody's help tremendously. The first is a woman by the name of Nasru Burkett. Nasru is coming up on 30 years old. She was born and raised in Somalia. She was given sanctuary status to Franklin County, to Columbus, several years ago, because of the ongoing conflict and civil war that was going on there. Her family were all killed in that conflict. Before coming to America, she took part in an arranged marriage in the Islamic fashion, and her husband moved here. As part of that program, all of the Somali immigrants were given Section 8 housing, pretty much saying, free housing for an extended period of time. While this was a great idea in theory, unfortunately, it began to devolve into what we know as housing projects, or the ghetto, so to speak. Not wanting to raise a family in that, Nasru decided that to get out, revoke her Section 8 status, and try to live in a better area of Columbus, which she did. Her and her husband did. 2 years ago, she gave birth to a son, Mudasir, and 1 year ago, she gave birth to another son, Jelani. Excuse me, I forget his name. Everything was going well for her. About 6 months ago, according to the police reports, something happened with her husband, Faisal. Nasru always said that the marriage was an arranged one and it wasn't exactly her idea, but her and Faisal were able to make things work. She was able to keep an equilibrium in the family, that there would be peace. But after the birth of the second child, things went off the deep end, so to speak. Faisal became extremely abusive. The pictures from the police report and from the intake report are pretty brutal. We finally got involved about 2 months ago, roughly. As part of the court order, the husband was to not stay with the family, and not reside in the apartment that they're staying in. He had left earlier than that, but that was part of the adjudication. The father, I haven't really been able to speak to, but he moved to Atlanta for some reason. I believe his mother and his brother are there, but the income dried up. On top of this, during this time, right before things started to get really bad, Nesrue became pregnant with the third child, and she is now 8 months into that pregnancy. Since the case opened, she has had no sources of income other than what she was able to bring in herself, but because of her pregnancy and some of the stress, she really hasn't been able to work. According to the apartment complex where she stays, and I spoke to them and had saw the notice myself, the paperwork to this, Nesrue was late only on her payment for November. She has still yet to pay that November rate. Usually in this situation, they get several months before an eviction is given. However, according to the apartment complex administration and the eviction notice, she has until the 10th of December to come up with 2 months' rent. So November's and all of December's, or she will be removed by December 11th. This is a grand total of $2,445, I believe, give or take a few dollars. And if she's not able to pay that in full, she will be removed. My agency, unfortunately, is completely overwhelmed, like I said, with these requests. And when I went to them, her request was denied. Part of that was because the agency is pragmatic with its money, which makes sense, but we cannot prove that she will have an income come December or January. Therefore, we cannot prove that she will be in any different situation come January. A bright side of this is that Faisal did send her $2,000 several weeks ago. However, that went to unpaid electric and utility bills and food and other things like that. So that dried up pretty quickly, unfortunately. If Nesrue does not get this money, she and the two boys will be homeless. She has no car, so she cannot stay in that car. If I were to put in a referral to any of the shelters, which I could do, at best, they could get her in a week. That's at best. And there's no guarantee that she would actually get in. So she's in pretty dire straits. What's unique about this case is that in my line of work, the idea of pure innocence, those who, adult-wise, who don't have some burden of guilt for what they've done, is usually high. The adults need to kind of take responsibility for some of the things that have happened in their lives. Nesrue is different because she is not like that. She is not anybody who's suffered from any addiction. She is in no way, shape, or form abusive or neglective to her children. She has actually tried to do everything she can to make sure that these things that she has seen happen in her community do not happen to her children. That some of the things that's happened to her family will not happen to her children. This is a woman who's done everything that anybody could possibly do, and then some, and yet has still not been able to find the success that is needed. The irony is that she was given a visa to come to our country because her country was not safe just for our country to then potentially take her children away from her. Because that is what would eventually happen if her children and her are homeless for an extended period of time, which is up to the courts, which is arbitrary. We don't really know what that time actually is. I will be forced to remove them. So her children will be removed for something that she had absolutely no control over. It would be great if we could get that money for her entirely, to at least allow me time to take the dogs off of her, to at least negotiate with the apartment complex that other people are involved, that are helping her, benefactors and stuff like that, moving forward. She has worked before. Miss Rue has in a daycare where she takes her children, so she doesn't have to pay for that. But unfortunately, with the extension of her pregnancy, it is just it's a perfect storm that way. So giving her this money would allow me to work with her husband, find her some more resources to potentially help with her rent maybe the next month. In January, excuse me, and work with her husband, who sounds like he's willing to send some more money back up. This is a case that could really hinge on just some of this money, and that can really turn very, very ugly very quickly, or could really save these children from a pretty bleak outcome. The second family I'd like to speak about is a mother by the name of Nicole Gajorczyk. Nicole also grew up in a pretty bad environment, not as bad as Miss Rue's, but grew up in the west side of Central Ohio. There's a record of her in Child Protective Services back when she was younger, based on what her parents did or did not do for her. There are allegations that her own parents actually gave her the drugs that she eventually got addicted to as a teenager. She ended up having a couple kids. Those kids are actually older now. Majority of them are older now, and she's actually got a pretty good relationship with them. But some very bad things happened moving forward with her during that time. She became pregnant with a young lady named Scarlett about 5 years ago. Scarlett is now 4 years old. And Nicole finds herself in some pretty dire straits too. She has been in and out of jail recently. By recently, I say the last 2 years. And when I say in and out of jail, I mean lock up for a week or two for some drug-related issues, not anything too extensive. But she has turned a corner quite a bit recently. She was never homeless, but had to spend about a week homeless. And that really perked her up quite a bit. She was able to get a job, $22 an hour. For somebody who doesn't have a high school education is wonderful, and 40 hours a week. And she's been testing clean for all of her different drug use and stuff like that. We were actually able to get her an apartment application in. I paid for that, and she now needs help with her first month's rent and a deposit. Her rent is only $800 for her and her daughter Scarlett, and then she needs about roughly another $400 for the deposit that is needed. This has been the furthest that Nicole, in her long history with Child Protective Services, has come. Her own apartment and everything like that. She's got several evictions from several years past, but this is the furthest she's ever come. After doing some inpatient things for her drug issues and mental health issues, we are really seeing her turn around very quickly, which is awesome. The problem is that she doesn't really have a family or anybody to rely on to potentially help with some of the money issues that she has. She does have a support system, but they have not very good socially for her or even financially at times. So if we could potentially get roughly around $1,200 for her, that would also be a very big boon for her. My fear is with Nicole is that after doing all this work and after doing all of these things, to then get the rug pulled out from under her because my agency who helped with some other finances will not pay for this rent this time around. They will not pay for the first month. I might be able to potentially, if she needs it for the second month, might be able to convince some people, but they will not for the first month. If she doesn't get this money, I fear that we will lose her and find her 3 to 6 months down the road dead on the west side of Ohio, west side of Columbus, which is all too often something I see too often. This is kind of her last shot, in a manner of speaking. She knows that she messed up pretty badly with her first 2 children, who are now grown, but she has done quite a job with Scarlett. And if she doesn't get this, well, it's pretty much it for her, so to speak. There are countless amount of cases like this. I've got 12 different cases comprising roughly 36 kids. These two are the ones that have the best shot of making it out of the darkness that was their lives before. So yes, I'm asking for your help. My resources, unfortunately, don't allow us to be able to help the way we want to, or the agency is not able to help as well. At least not at this time. So if we could get to $2,400 for Nesru, and or potentially around $1,200 for Nicole, that would really actually change some lives. Scarlett, like I said, is 4 years old. She's a very sweet little girl, and she needs her mommy. She really does. The father is not a particularly great man. I think he might be trying to turn his life around, but he also has charges of child molestation against him from his former daughters as well. And I have evidence that shows that he actually did do that, or at least that he admits to it, saying he was sorry. But the court actually adjudicated, saying that Scarlett could go with him, the father, whose name is Mike, if anything would have happened to Nicole. So that is Scarlett's future. She's either potentially homeless with her mother, or removed by me to then be put in with her father, who is potentially guilty of a myriad of crimes against younger girls. That is what the court has decided. If you could help Nicole and Nesru, that would be really, really great. It would really, truly change people's lives at a level that most of us don't really get an opportunity to do. So, thank you for your time.